when the river became a weapon. In 1861 around Aurora, water was cresting by December 5th, yet the real damage was just getting started. Because here's something people don't realize. Water alone wasn't the deadliest part. That's because the Willamette River was now weaponized. Water cresting, the river was armed and dangerous, fully loaded with a quiver of mountain timber. Soil now softened. Fir trees were uprooted and fell like dominos, then raced torpedo-like with the fast-running current. Local Butteville pastor Reverend Michael Fackler wrote in Amazement about pitch-black currents carrying massive fir logs up to 200 feet long. Showdown at Graham's Ferry. Graham's Ferry was at a critical bend in the river and where colossal trees were turning into battering rams. They tore ferry cables, leveled orchards, and pushed buildings over with ease. Imagine waking up in the freezing darkness of December to the sound of roaring water and 200-foot missiles snapping your house in half. Timber pierced through the current, slamming into lowlands around Graham's Ferry and Butteville Road to devastating effect. The sheer force of massive logs swinging Paul Bunyan-like clubbed everything in their path, leaving heaps of scattered lumber across French Prairie as the water receded. Flooding and fighting. By December 1861, the United States was entering its first bloody Christmas of the Civil War as President Abraham Lincoln struggled to heal the fractured Union. Back east, soldiers prepared for the brutality of battle by digging trenches in Virginia. But here in Oregon, pioneers fought a very different enemy, digging out from the massive heaps of French prairie mud covering where their towns used to be. As Civil War soldiers raced toward each other, in Oregon, survival depended on racing from a rising river. At Champoeg, the very birthplace of Oregon's first government, the water reached a mind-boggling 30 feet depth. Every structure was swept away except for the Hudson's Bay Company warehouse. Aftermath. During the late 1800s, railroads gradually replaced the steamboat for transporting the area's freight and passengers, with Champoeg declining as a trade center. Some residents attempted to rebuild, but another flood decades later permanently ended their efforts, as the buildings at Champoeg were again swept away. The hopelessness of reestablishing a town at Champoeg was eventually understood, leading to its abandonment in 1892. Champoeg is now a state park. Winners and losers. Yet an Aurora area community survived, and though it's small, it's still here. That place? Butteville, Oregon. So what about another nearby French Prairie area, like Donald, Oregon? Donald didn't even exist then, developing into a town decades later. As a result, damage to that area was pretty much limited to what was then largely French Prairie farmland. Why did Champoeg die while Butteville survived? Geography helped Butteville. Champoeg wasn't destroyed because it sat dramatically lower than Butteville. Instead, it was just a few extra feet of elevation. Yet when floodwater spread across French Prairie, that made all the difference. This hill just outside of Butteville, known by its French Prairie-derived name of La Butte, is a hard volcanic basalt escarpment that gave Butteville its name. At 427 feet elevation, it doesn't seem that tall. Yet this seemingly nondescript hill would have represented higher ground to those seeking refuge during the 1861 flood. The elevation of La Butte was above the 30-foot floodwaters that also completely obliterated the lower-lying town of Champoeg. Along with Champoeg, the 1861 flood completely destroyed several other Willamette Valley towns, mills, and bridges never designed to withstand such pressure. A few of these were the bustling mill town of Lynn City, swept away and eventually replaced by the town of West Lynn. Across the Willamette River from Corvallis, the town of Orleans was completely washed away and never reestablished. A short drive from Albany, the town of Santiam is another community erased by the 1861 flood and never rebuilt. So the next time you're driving around Aurora between Butteville and Graham Road along Butteville Road, or camp at nearby Shampooey Park, look around. You're on the site of Oregon's greatest and most forgotten disaster.